What is your weakness? It says in a CV. Oh, I try too hard. I don't stop working. I keep working all day long. I am too enthusiastic. Oh, don't you want to vomit when you hear that sort of rubbish? Well, Boris Johnson is doing that now. Boris Johnson has just done something relatively unusual for a former Prime Minister. He's admitted that one of his flagship policies went too far, too fast, or too wrong. In a forthcoming book, Prosperity Through Growth, Johnson concedes that as Prime Minister he was carried away. Carried away. Well, it wasn't by net zero. I think it was by what went on the sofa. By the vision of renewable energy swiftly replacing fossil fuels. He now says bluntly, we went too far, too fast on net zero. This is striking because Johnson was once the Conservative Party's most enthusiastic evangelist for the green agenda. Under his leadership, Britain enshrined into law the world's most ambitious emissions target, a 78% cut by 2035 compared to 1990, and he cast Britain as the moral leader at the COP26 climate summit. His pitch was that wind, solar, hydrogen and nuclear would bring cheaper energy, new jobs and global prestige. Yet in his interview with Lord Elliot of Micklefell, Johnson now acknowledges the practical shock of Russia's invasion of Ukraine when gas prices soared and drove up the wholesale price of all electricity. Britain's energy system was exposed, and the dream that intermittent renewables could finally replace or displace hydrocarbons with little pain to households collapsed under the weight of reality. Johnson's tone is neither a total retreat nor an anti-green crusade. He warns against junking net zero altogether, knowing public concern for the environment remains strong, but his advice is to slow down, to be like St. Augustine, as he colourfully put it. We will be chaste, but not yet. It is classic Johnson, humorous, but signalling a serious recalibration. And he's not alone. Tony Blair has recently called the current approach doomed to fail. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond says the Treasury once estimated the cost of a 2050 net zero pathway at up to £2 trillion, warning that voters have been misled about the expense. Lord Hammond argues for later targets such as 2060 or 2070 to allow proper power stations and infrastructure to be replaced at the end of their natural lives rather than scrapped early. And this debate comes as Kemi Badenoch, the current Conservative leader, moves sharply in the opposite direction, promising to repeal the 2008 Climate Change Act and maximise North Sea oil and gas. Johnson, though critical of his own haste, calls Badenoch's plan to abandon net zero outright a mistake. He seems to want to occupy the middle ground, pragmatic delay rather than ideological destruction, and there's nothing wrong with the middle ground. Politically, this matters. The original cross-party consensus on net zero is fracturing. Labour remains committed to 2050 and to heavy green investment, though Ed Miliband's promise of cheaper bills by 2030 has so far been undermined by stubbornly high energy prices. The Conservatives, meanwhile, are split. May and Johnson defend the destination but question the speed. Badenoch and the populist right want to scrap the entire legal framework. Johnson's mea culpa may resonate with voters who have felt the cost of rapid decarbonisation in higher bills, heat pump confusion, and the backlash against electric vehicle deadlines. Yet it also risks emboldening those who want to walk away from climate action altogether. That is the tension. Admit error without fueling climate denial. And economically, Johnson's criticism touches a real problem. Britain has some of the highest industrial electricity prices in the world. Data centres, AI infrastructure and advanced manufacturing require cheap, reliable power. A dash to decarbonise the grid by 2030, locking in long contracts at high capital costs, may make that harder. Without cheaper energy, the promise of green growth looks fragile. The question now is whether Britain can find a new credible path, one that keeps public consent, recognises cost and still drives long-term decarbonisation. Johnson's confession is less about abandoning the fight than about pace and politics. But it punctures the optimism that renewals alone, rushed into service, could painlessly deliver prosperity. For a man often accused of never admitting mistakes, this is a rare moment of candour. Whether it helps Britain rebuild a sustainable, affordable and politically viable climate strategy or merely accelerates the retreat from ambition will depend on how both main parties respond.